I promise we won't bite.
All right. Should we go? All right. Okay, I think he'll need some time to do the LinkedIn Live as well. Expert there. All right. Welcome, everyone. Before we start with the formal event, thank you. Thank you for joining us. How many of you guys are visiting from out of town? Oh, decent number of folks. First TechCrunch Disrupt? That's awesome. Okay. Excellent, excellent. So I think I'll start with, both of us will start with a quick round of intro, tell you a little bit about Descope Delve. Not going to be a big sales pitch. But the goal today is to kind of share our journeys and our experiences, and would love to make it interactive. And let us know your questions, raise hands, and let's make it interactive. Again, the goal was to really share our experiences on what we have seen and what we are seeing in the building of the startup part, and help if we can. So maybe Karun.
Absolutely. No, thanks for the intro. Thanks for the setup for the event. I'm Karun. I'm one of the co-founders of Delve. For context, has anyone seen or heard of SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR compliance, anything like this? Nice. I'm sorry that you had to deal with it. Delve is TurboTax for compliance. So if anyone needs to get compliant with SOC 2, GDPR, HIPAA, any other compliance framework that's blocking you from closing a deal, Delve helps you get compliant quickly and effectively. So, hours, not weeks to get compliant, and that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Karun. And I'm Rishi Bhargav, one of the co-founders of Descope. And Descope is basically exactly what Karun said, but for authentication, and that is why we are here together. The idea being, again, authentication seems very simple. Most of the people use Firebase, Cognito, looks like it's going to be easy. Starts there, but within few weeks, you'll realize, oh, I need a different auth method. I need SAML for the enterprise. I need SCIM for the enterprise. And as you said, just like when you need SOC 2 to go sell to customers, you'll need those things, need to be enterprise ready. That is where we come in. So for authentication, again, the goal is making it easy. That is the theme for both B2C and B2B startups.
I will say it's a great product. So I still remember, by the way, we were 2 people. We implemented Descope. And they're not joking. It is literally drag and drop authentication for pretty much every type of system. We built it with 2 people, and it's still in prod with like all the team size that we have now. So, great product.
Thank you, Karun. So maybe if you want, like any particular hot burning topics that you guys would want us to talk about, rather than us going off the questions that we prepared. Let's invert in the beginning rather than questions at the end.
AI fraud on the customer side or the side that's trying to get through the authentication?
Okay, technical question. The question was AI fraud from the customer side getting into your application. I think I'll park it and get it to that a little bit later. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Generally, are all of you founders? Yeah, most part. Yeah? Okay.
Awesome. So I think let's then start with the some of the founder journey things that we plan to share. I'll start with a very fundamental question if you're early in the journey, which is what's a reliable way to find out who you are building for and whether they are worth building for, like whether there's a market, whether what you're thinking of building, is that a viable big market? So maybe Karun, if you want to give your journey and maybe even your background and how you ended up with this idea, with this space, and why build for this space.
Yeah, for sure. So context, my co-founder Celine and I, who's probably somewhere here, maybe taking a call, We are both from the Bay Area, so both from Cupertino, Los Gatos, not too far from here. We both grew up pretty young, actually. So we're both 21. We're in this like new era of students turned founders, building in like different regulated and hard industries. We actually had to get compliant ourselves. So we were building an AI scribe. Think of it as like taking notes in the doctor's office back when we were at MIT. And as part of that, had to get HIPAA compliant. We closed our first customer, had to sell our AI scribe to them, and we couldn't do it without getting HIPAA compliant. We realized that it takes 6 to 8 weeks, tens of thousands of dollars, and consultants on top of existing platforms in order to actually go through the compliance process. It's a very arduous and complex journey. And we realized that we wanted to build in the space to make it easier to get compliant. And I think that, Rishi, to your point of like, how do you find who you're building for and why? A lot of the times it comes from you experiencing things yourself or being a heat-seeking missile for pain. And I think that's like a cultural value. We literally are printing this on the wall. It's like at Delve, we're heat-seeking missiles for pain. Like we try to find solutions that customers have and solve those. And we keep iterating every day until we find that right problem for them. And so, what started as an AI scribe ended up as a compliance company. And that's kind of how we look at it.
That's actually very interesting, and I think I'm also 21 for the last 28 years. So interesting, and I think this might become a theme, right? Both of us will see things slightly different, but I think very similar at the core of it, right? So for me, the journey of finding the idea or who you are building for, the pain is the common theme, right? One thing I have seen, and this is not my first one, is you need to find acute pain which people are willing to pay for or rip apart their current product for, right? And in this market, we are building for an existing market, you are building for an existing market. And even when you're creating new categories, the question to ask is, what is the customer's alternative? If they don't do this, what else are they going to do? And is that alternative way higher pain across? So I like by the way, heat-seeking missile for pain makes perfect sense. It's a good analogy to go. Yeah. But the related question, Karun, for you, is it better to start narrow from an ICP perspective, or do you go broad for the product building? And tied to it, right? I mean, like, how do you uncover the pain? You said it, like heat-seeking, like, how do you find that? Like, it's not trivial, right? In some cases, you may not be even able to talk to customers. So what do you do there?
I'd say at Delve, we focus on being extremely narrow and focused. Generally, as a startup, right? And I'm sure all of y'all are founders. You have 2 people, 5 people, at Delve's case, 25 people. A large number of customers or competitors will be in the hundreds or thousands of employees, right? And as a startup, your advantage is twofold, right? One, you have focus. You can hit a nail in a particular angle far deeper than a competitor can. Right? Competitors have to worry about like 100 different things, and they have a large team and they have a large scale. And you can build one part of the problem exceptionally well and solve one particular pain point with a particular approach exceptionally well. And you can do things that don't scale. I'm sure in the early days for you, for us, we sold our first HIPAA product. And we basically built the product in the customer's office. And we helped them get compliant like until midnight on a Sunday. And that was like our whole product. It's like, we're just gonna get you compliant, right? Like we're selling us, right? And I think that you kind of keep approaching and you keep changing things, and eventually you'll improve your approaches. But as long as you're super focused on both one, a narrow problem, and two, like a full and like complete solution, whether it's yourselves or your product, I think it usually works out.
Very good.
How did you end up in authentication? Like, what did you?
Yeah, I think that's actually a good question. I think for us, so I said the Descope, or even my previous company, was a team first, idea later company. So first we said, this is the team. I think similar, right? So you and Celine started this. From an idea perspective, I think we started having one basic premise, which is we want to solve for a pain point which is very, very big market, right? So we had the fortune, Demisto, which was acquired by Palo Alto Network. That was a new space, created a category. So in a new category, the market is not very big, but you can get a larger share of the category. So we did very well there. But this time we said, okay, we want a really big market. We want to go after a big market and a very worthwhile security problem. And my master's thesis advisor from USC, when I did my master's, I'm in touch with him, he's my brother-in-law now. He says, find a problem which is worthy, big. So those two things combined, and I think we said, okay, what are the big problems in security? It jumped out, passwords were the problem in security, and they have been for the last 35, 40 years. So our initial hypothesis was get rid of the passwords from the world. So it started by building a passwordless journey, and then it turned into, of course, to build a passwordless world, you need an authentication. But pain point, again, it remains the high. I think that's where we ended up. And I think to me, we looked at multiple different markets, says find a pain point. Pain point is high. Everybody needs us. Like, so this, in this case, no company out here does not need our product. And I think that is what is exciting for me about this space.
Definitely. Actually curious there, like what's your vision with Descope? Like what gets you out of bed every day? Like what's your goal?
So the vision is, I think, again, started with the big market. So build it for lasting, long run. That's how we think about this. Like a lot of people, but at the same time, I always, like, my philosophy in life is you can have a vision, but I don't try to optimize for things longer than 2 quarters. It's like not worth it. You don't know what's going on longer than that, right? There's so many uncontrolled. So the long-term vision is to actually go challenge the likes of Okta. And we are starting to do that, at least in the short time we've been around. Large customer base, 1,000+ companies in production using the product, scaling. But I think build a sustainable thing. I think to me, I always say, if you are able to get rid of passwords in 10 years, us and our competitors together, that's a success for all of us. That's how it was like, why should you need passwords?
Yeah.
So let's move on. I think one of the big other things which I hear from a lot of founders and having some conversation there before the panel is product and distribution. So we talked about getting to the idea. How do you think about distribution? Is the product differentiated enough? Are endless growth hacks enough? How do you think about like the product differentiation and the distribution? Because if you have a 10x product, then people claim that distribution becomes easy. But then I say is no, the distribution is never easy. What are your thoughts there?
I think you need both. Right? You cannot build a great company if you have A+ marketing and no product to back it up. And you can't build a product in a cave and expect everyone's going to use it if it works. And I think that you need to have world-class marketing and world-class product to back it up. And if you're B2B, you need a sales organization that's effective and can transfer the marketing from an actual lead into a closed customer that uses the product. I guess the way I like to look at this is like every company boils down to Rick. Shout out to Greptile for this analogy. Everything is like reach a customer, intrigue them, convert them, and then keep them. And reaching and intriguing a customer, that's often marketing. Converting and keeping, that's often product is helping, right? And like everything kind of boils into one of those columns in Rick. From a marketing perspective, at least this is my perspective because I'm younger, is be creative, right? The number one factor for a company being successful is like the year it was founded. And timing is everything. And we're in a day and age where like AI is here and AI is now, and there's movement in the market. And why not like be bold and like capture it, right? So like Dell, we ran a billboard campaign recently, for example. And our whole thesis around this is like compliance is just done in Delve. Like this is by default the best solution because we're an AI native platform. And I think similarly, it's our strategy with growth hacks, right? We're thinking differently. Like we have to, just like you're iterating on product, just like you're having customer calls and you're thinking about the net new approaches, like it's equally important for people to know that you exist, because if they don't know you exist, they can't buy your product. And that's why we're doing things like growth hacks and LinkedIn and all that. And that's how we iterate. Like it's just the same net new approach that we try to do in product. Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? So growth hacks, probably a new phrase. I remember 2020, Demisto days, I called it GTM innovation. And you're right. I mean, I think it's very interesting that look at any successful company that grew fast, they did both. An amazing product, but also increase the reach. And you're right. I think the reach is with like being creative, being disruptive. Though, interesting, the enterprise, like very interesting. We're all sitting in Silicon Valley, all of us founders. There is another side, right? And I got to see this other side both in Demisto and now with Descope, right? I mean, we sell one audiences for us as founders and startup ecosystem where they're building the auth for the first time, 2 people. And the second is going to large companies, whether there's GoFundMe's of the world or large Six Sense and others, which already have an auth system, 1,000 people, or even we have customers, which I cannot name, with 20,000 employees. And there, no matter how creative the marketing is, these people do not talk to you. So it's very interesting, and there are some creative ways to kind of go attach to them. Completely different go-to-market. So I think that's another thing. People who are here trying to sell, there's somebody I talked to, they're trying to sell to like large insurance companies. Completely different market, right? I mean, you cannot reach them with some of these pieces, but there's still creativity to be done. But creativity is key both in GTM and product.
Yeah, I'll also add that there's always an answer. Like for every customer, I think a framework, if it's a tactical framework that I think could be helpful for everyone is, think about where are your customers, what do they do every day to learn, and how do they, absorb information, and then how can you get there? For us, it's LinkedIn, it's billboards, it's presence in Silicon Valley. That's why we focus so much on those networks. And that's what works well for us. If you're selling to their startups, could be something interesting to try. If you're selling on the enterprise, maybe it's your desk, right? Maybe you can send a custom bobblehead. You can send a family mail via FedEx, which is required to get to the recipient. You can do creative things, right? And I think there's always a way when you have the desire to do it, as long as you're just 100%. Not taking no for an answer.
I think it's an interesting thing. I'll double down on one of the things you said. Find where your audience are, and that's kind of the key. One of the things again I've seen is in Demisto days we created our own Slack community. Back then Slack was very hot. This was 2015. That is when the Slack was here. So we started in 2015. We created our own Slack community. Now Slack communities are dime a dozen. We were probably one of the first ones. Grew very fast to 20,000 people. It's funny, this was days where Slack didn't even had a free plan which was curtailed, right? They were figuring out their motion, so we got free plan with even 20,000 people on that community and stuff, and then they started to curtail it. But what I'm saying is, back then, the audience we were selling to had no central place to go discuss topics. It was not about our product. So just gave them a forum, and they started to learn about us. The free product download started to pick up. So good point on finding where they are, where do they hang out, what is their thing going on. What else do we have here? So you mentioned the age of AI, and I think I see an amazing governance layer for agentic AI. Everybody, there was a conversation I had on walkie-talkie and how does AI can help the frontline blue-collar workers. Let's discuss, like, in the world of AI where the build has become so easy. And one of the challenge we face as a company, transparently sharing challenges, is build versus buy. A lot of people say, no, I can build this easy. One, how do you think about it? In your company, in general, tools on a daily basis, as you're growing, whether it's a CRM, whether it's a auth product, whether it's something else. And what are your, are you facing similar challenges when customers start to engage? So what do you see?
Yeah, it's a great question. Definitely a question that pops up, especially with like vibe coding. Lovable is so good now that you can generally one shot or two shot a pretty solid internal tool, for example. Context on Delve, like we're an AI native company. That doesn't just mean in our product. And so we have AI across our company. Sales, customer success. For example, our sellers do not touch the CRM. So we have a tool called Ergo, joinergo.com. We use them for like CRM automation. So our sellers, they don't have to update the CRM. It automatically like moves the buckets for them, writes the follow-up emails, adds attributes, all of those different things like directly into the UI. Similarly, like customer success, like we wrote AI in-house that like drafts responses and helps customer success managers like respond faster. A bunch of other tooling like this that like has been really helpful. At the same time, as you're saying, like there are tools that are just not worth building, right? Like it probably did not make sense for us to build the CRM automation or build the I don't know, like our customer success, not the bot. We built the bot, but we did not build the platform around the bot. Right, so there's like little things like this. Generally, my decision-making thesis around this comes down to that point we had earlier about focus, right? Like everything in your company, and especially your IP, needs to focus around the value to the customer, right? And like a Slack bot can have direct value to the customer if it's done right. And I view customer success as a part of our product. Like the support that we give is ultimately value to the customer. And at Delve, we're always selling value. Like we're always selling Delve will get you compliant one way or another. And that can be support, that can be product. And so that's why we build like support functions in-house. But like sales automation, like that's not core IP. That does not make or break our company. It just saves the seller time. And if it's an improvement versus a core functionality, that's when we'll like improvements we'll buy, core functionalities we'll build. That's kind of how I view it, but yeah.
That's amazing. I think it's very interesting. This is where we align on the thesis, which is it's almost about focus. Small things which you believe are very bounded, you can try to build in today's world. I have an example, right? Like we started to see spike as we scaled legal contract reviews. And we needed a simple ticketing system. There's so many Jira and this and that, but they're not optimized for attachments and legal revision of the same doc. Like there's no good, I mean, I'm sure there are contract management system which enterprises buy, but for a 100 people company, there's no tool where you can track revision of the same document attached by legal and easy enough to, so built one internally. So there would be tools which are very contained that this is all they need to do. But then when it comes to, and this is I'm seeing across our customer base and others I talk to, when it comes to anything to work with a customer, there is so much workflow that starts to get added up. Like we talked about is like, should we build a support ticketing system? No way, right? Because the level of workflows that go back and forth and the nuances you need, that's important. And then you don't want an engineer to be committed to building these tools. You want engineer to be building the product yourself.
Exactly.
So very, very good way to think about it.
Definitely. Has that been a big thing on your mind, like building versus buying?
That has been a big thing. I think it's also because for us specifically, authentication space has always been, like if you look at historically, people said, what's the big deal? Let me start a database, encrypted hash password in a database, and we are done. Right? And that I think is an ongoing question. And now, even with the agentic world, one of the things like, what's big deal with OAuth? Why don't I ask OAuth agent to use OAuth to connect to a Salesforce or to connect to any tool? But it's never that easy, right? I mean, the whole point here, nuance is how it gets deeper. So this is a constant, especially in very large accounts that we deal with, there's a constant battle, which is, can I put 5 engineers and build everything that Descope does internally in the scale systems? I think this ecosystem and the younger growth companies is different. But build versus buy is a constant debate for us as we talk to customers.
Definitely. And I think it's not just for us, like internally of what we build and buy, it's also, for all of our customers, right? Like,
Yeah.
Do you build Descope or do you buy Descope, right? I would recommend you don't build Descope like we didn't because, we actually did try to, and good luck managing your refresh tokens at scale. It falls apart. Definitely found out the hard way. And I think similarly,
Similarly, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other interesting thing in that theme is industries get mature. So I think even with authentication now, it's becoming known that you don't need to build, there's alternate available. That's one point of time. In fact, I remember in my early days, compliance used to be one of those things, and Palo Alto Networks and many other companies, they deployed internal projects to go build compliance workflows. They would have old systems like Archer and whatnot, but then they would build workflows over workflows on top to kind of spreadsheets and form builders. Just a nightmare, which people went through.
yeah. And for context, our approach is like for the enterprise, we basically sell workflow automation.
Yeah.
And so our goal is like, let's kill the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of you having a spreadsheet and then an API to gather evidence, which is typically how compliance works today, can we have an agent just do the work for you? And that's kind of probably where that comes from.
Questions from the audience. If anybody has, feel free to raise your hands. We'll go through that. We have a spare mic.
Go for it.
So, digital platform.
He's turning it on.
Testing. Anthony Dan, digital platform for real patient monitoring, aggregating FDA devices to monitor chronic conditions like COPD and hypertension. So we did the HIPAA compliance thing. Now we're doing the SOC 2. Apparently, according to our CISO, we did HIPAA so well, we're probably about 65% on our way to being SOC 2 Type 1, and then the next thing, obviously the Type 2. And I love the example they told me. It was like, Type 1's a snapshot, Type 2 is a video. And then, what are you guys' thoughts on like high trust? When should that get into the conversation, and how much of a benefit is HIPAA and SOC 2 Type 2 towards high trust? What's the lift? What's the cost? Who do we go to for that? I mean, it was a lot to get to HIPAA and SOC 2 Type 2, so it's something that's been on our roadmap we're trying to figure out right now.
Amazing. Every part of that question was great except for who do we go to. I'm disappointed with that question. But aside from that, great that you're on the HIPAA SOC 2 journey. A little bit of context for the audience. Compliance exists for two reasons. We help you build trust with your customers, ultimately helps you close more deals, and we reduce risk within your company. Right? So we help you protect your information, your assets, your people. At a high level, it sounds like you're HIPAA compliant today. You're working towards SOC 2. And the question is like, how do you approach new frameworks? How do you approach like establishing new systems? I would say that Delve is focused on value to the customer, and the value to the customer is the value to you. And the questions I would ask yourself are, how many more deals can you close if you have high trust compliance? What is the timeline to high trust compliance? And if you don't start it now, would it block revenue for you in 3 months or in 6 months? And I would kind of start to think about, what do the problems of not having compliance entail for you? If you need to get high trust compliant or FedRAMP or PCI or ISO 42001 or any of like the more advanced frameworks, like Delve can absolutely help you with any of those in like a very fast manner. By auditing your systems, helping you establish better compliance practices, and like going through that in a streamlined UI. But the general consensus is like, one, what is the problem for you, and what is the timeline for when you should get compliant? And then two, book a demo with us, and we'll take care of it. Yeah.
I think having been on the driving the compliance side, I think my recommendation, and he mentioned it, but I'll reiterate, which is do it with an intent, right? Which is high trust, couple of customers, is it blocking certain things? But do it in advanced enough. I have seen enough where, like it's the normal story, things take longer because of the process or other pieces, especially as you get up mark, like FedRAMP and high trust kind of things. You could be ready, but there's auditors, there's external stuff that takes time. But again, I think I've done it when even these tools didn't exist, and my recommendation is start early. if you could afford, start earlier.
Yeah, the required for health systems and IDNs. We can get into hospitals with SOC 2 Type 2. So, thank you.
Questions?
Hi, my name is Tejas. My question is for Rishiv. You said we want to move towards a place where there are no passwords. So where does behavioral authentication fit in Descope's workflow? So it could be authentication based on how you type, your location. Could be, I had heard about this company called Unify ID years ago in TechCrunch. And I had seen them in Disrupt, so that's where I was pretty amazed by their demo, wherein they showed authentication based on how you walk. And I just wanted to say, how does that fit in your roadmap?
This one is a very, very good question. I think, first of all, as an entrepreneur, I feel I'm not a researcher, and I don't like to build sci-fi. Right, a lot of these behavioral signals sound amazing, research oriented, but when you try to put these at scale, they're very hard. Second thing, I think it's important in the world of security, and I've built, like my whole career has been in security, is you cannot be wrong even once. Like the false negative side is disastrous. Right, getting somebody in just because two behaviors were close enough, that's the end of it, right? I mean, like you can fail the login multiple times and the user will be annoyed. You don't want that at scale also. You will lose traffic and money. But you get one wrong person in and that's it, right? That's the end of the company. Because of those reasons, I think I'm saying those ideas have existed, been tried, but they're never becoming the primary authentication system. I think the primary auth has always been very reliable. Password, reliable. You know your password or you don't know your password, right? There's no guesswork there. So the philosophy for us is, first of all, going passwordless does not mean I stick to one method. So we support like 12 or 13 different methods. One of them is actually passwords. We even support, for the old companies that I talked about, we support secret questions, which I hate. My question was, first kiss, when did you have your first kiss? Like, oh my God, I'm not a person who remembers the first kiss. Some bank, somebody asked that. So things like those are there, but I have 13 different auth methods. Now, what is interesting is you can go passwordless with just a phone and OTP, very reliable. Not very secure, so you need to layer on top. You can go passwordless with passkeys, which is biometric. Very, very broad, very adaptable. You can go passwordless with the login with GitHub, login with Google, login with everything else. So I think to me, that's how I'm thinking about it. Those things, by the way, do fall into Descope and integration and partners. We have 100 plus connectors. They are fraud connectors. So we connect, when this was also a question about agentic fraud, we have connectors to multiple different systems to be able to bring in that signal. So we integrate with behavioral tools, multiple tools that we have in that domain. Why am I blanking out? So Sardines is one of the tool and many others. So we'll take that signal. That's one signal out of many other that you will take from a risk perspective. But I think that's kind of a long-winded answer. But auth methods need to be reliable and simple. The user understands how they're logging in. I've seen is like, imagine you give the user, they're typing in and they're logged in. You'll freak out your users if they did not take a deliberate action. They will be worried. Cool. I think in interest of time, unless there are other questions. Oh, yeah, please. Or you can speak up. I'll repeat the question.
Hello. So one of the biggest challenges we have today about reliability, you cannot get away from observability today because one of the problems is we're both a supply vendor, Microsoft, Google, that purposely mask out the AI interface back to the host. We have no idea where the data goes swim out from prompting and things like that. So we only can do maximum possibility and guess the correlation between your Windows or hard drive, have some idea where the number is. So 100% security fault detection is no longer there because I have a port 80 encrypt data from the browser going out the door. And I can literally run Python in your browser, and you have credentials, your OneDrive, and networking, everything you want to do, access, and encrypt whatever data you want to go out. So I don't see any way you can get away from observability. You just can't.
Get away from what, sorry?
Observability tool set,
Observability tools. I think.
especially in client side.
So what, like, I didn't understand the question. Why are you trying to get away from observability?
No, you can't. You people saying that you say you're 100% reliable. It's not possible right now.
Oh,
Because right now we have all this Chrome plugin, Edge plugin that have port A data to LM that I don't know who they are. I can run Python code in the browser that I cannot stop managing users to stop it.
I see.
I have local access to my local hard drive, my VPN, my OneDrive is, and then if you.
But those are, I think that's a good question. I think it's from my perspective, when I said 100% reliable, it's the trust boundary that you set. Browser, I consider trusted. If the user logged into the browser and the Chrome extension gets into that, I move the problem. In the security world, I move the problem. Why did you allow the user to install that Chrome plugin, which was not an allowed plugin? So I think this gets into a deeper security discussion, but from my perspective, in security, there's always been, where do you set the trust boundary? The token is with the browser. And by the way, I'll take a good agentic example. It's crazy. So I posted yesterday on LinkedIn, Brave, which is the browser, that team posted a big vulnerability, which is you can take Comet or any other AI browser, and they will follow instructions from the website. There are certain websites which will hide instructions, white text on white, or emojis. And then basically these browsers will follow the instruction that the browser is giving them. Guess what? Those instructions could be go to the user's Gmail, take all the contacts and upload it here. The browser has the authentication token. So the whole fundamental problem is that AI sitting in the browser breaches that border of trust. And from my perspective, from an authentication layer perspective, this is why I'm a big fan of MCP, where there is a layer, there is an authorization server, and there is an absolute thing, because the site otherwise doesn't know whether the user logging in or the browser taking an action on user's behalf. Completely broken trust model there. So good point. I think need to define the trust model in enterprise. All right. I think we'll be happy to kind of hang around and take questions. I think to me, we'll end this question, Karun. I want to hear your opinion. I think since you guys building fast, young founders, which is being human in the age of AI, right? You're truly AI native, I believe. So how do you hire the right people that make your startup successful? And I know I've seen a whole bunch of your posts, very strong opinions on hiring. How do you pick the right team? How do you find the right team? So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, you're thinking differently. And we focused a lot on finding people that also think differently. What that means is we're an incredibly lean team. So we have 25 people. We serve almost 1,000 customers now across startups and mid-market customers. And what that means is, each engineer on the team is servicing, dozens to over hundreds of customers. And as part of that, how do we do that efficiency and how do we build in this day and age? We have a lot of former founders, former International Olympiad gold medalists, former, operators. And this has led to people that, what I call this in the company, right? We are salting every part of the dish as we cook it. And so if our marketing person is a former founder, they know how to negotiate and handle margin and hire. And so they're able to operate that effectively, and that trickles up to being a profitable business. Where operations team members have hired people before, and they've negotiated sneakers. right? And that leads to them being able to like keep all of our vendors in check. Our engineers have also run startups before, and they know what it takes to think critically and like solve a problem. And so as you give people ambiguous problems, like, hey, like go figure out this product, they're able to think critically and creatively about the solution. We're also a quite young team. I would say in the 20s to 30s. And as part of that, we're focused on like, new ideas. At the same time, we hold a lot of advisors and expertise that are well in their 50s for making sure we like have guardrails, right? But if we're trying to iterate, we try to bring fresh ideas and we try to stay lean and focused on those ideas.
Amazing. Very well said. And I think every person contributing with new ideas is a theme that, again, I've carried throughout my career, which is basically, it's not only in the hiring. As you scale, one of the things I've seen is if you do not put the right process in place, you start to shut down ideas from people in the team. And I think we really, to me, that's an important thing to watch out, which is make sure you let those voices be heard, let those people make decisions, let those people come up with new things. So that's the other piece. But with that, thank you so much, Karun. I hope
you as well.
this was useful to the team. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.